welcome to episode 8.
Episode 8
of Literarily Dead.
Yes.
So this week we have decided to talk about death practices / funerary practices /
And I didn't think I'd be this excited for this episode, but I am so excited.
I'm glad you're excited.
Much
this is
excited.
a little, I don't know what you would write about, or talk about. So I'm gonna be taken by surprise no matter what you say.
That's very true. You will be. But at the same time, you're gonna look at me and be like, really? There's not really gonna be an in between this week.
Okay.
For your response to me, and the random decider decided I'm going first.
Yay! All right. So take it away.
Are you ready?
I'm somewhat ready.
Okay, so we're talking about ancient Egyptian funerary texts.
Oh, okay. I'm not surprised.
I knew you.
Never mind.
So I'm basically focusing on the Book of the Dead and the origins of the Book of the Dead. And so we're going to go through the history of where it originated, and then we're going to go into content. And I'm really excited about this. I'm going to nerd out so hard. So contrary to popular belief, the Book of the Dead is, well, for one, not actually a book.
Okay.
It is a collection of texts. And then since we're in Egypt and we're talking about Egypt, it's not an actual, codice, codex. They're just a collection of scrolls. Codices didn't come into Egypt until way later.
So what's a codice?
A codice is a codex. Codice is the plural of codex. And it's just the modern way of books are with a board and pages and a board, and it folds. So Egypt just has scrolls at this point in history. And then there's also this misconception that the Book of the Dead has been used throughout all of Egyptian history. And that's not technically true.
Not technically true.
Technically. So the Book of the Dead, as we know it, started in the New Kingdom around 1550 BCE.
Okay.
And lasted around 50 BCE. So we're talking 1,000 years that this is in practice. But the misconception comes because the Book of the Dead includes 2 other texts.
Okay.
The first one is the pyramid texts, which go back to the Old Kingdom. Okay. The first person to use the pyramid text was in 2400 BCE by King Unis of the 5th dynasty. So we're talking really fucking old. Yeah. And the pyramid texts were used exclusively for the pharaoh, but in the 6th dynasty it opened up to being eligible for queens to use it. The text was written on the walls of the burial chamber inside the pyramid in Old Egyptian. And the writing is an early form of hieroglyphic. At the end of the Old Kingdom, the afterlife opens up to military officers and government officials. Oh. So now they're able to use the Book of the Dead, the pyramid text, in order to get to the next life. Okay. And then after the Old Kingdom, you go into the first intermediate period. And that's where the coffin texts show up. And they run from the first intermediate period to the end of the Middle Kingdom. So the coffin texts is brand new, basically brand new, in terms of language, in terms of where it's being written. So in this case, it's being written on coffin instead of walls. Okay. So some of the content is also new. They have new spells and everything. And this time, the text included illustrations. So this is the first time that we're seeing illustrations in regards to funerary practices. Okay. And the coffin text made the afterlife even more accessible, so long as that they could afford coffin to write it on. So we're talking upper class now, that the afterlife opens up to. So in the grand scheme of things, it goes pyramid text, which influences coffin text, and both of those feed into the Book of the Dead. Okay. So the Book of the Dead was developed in Thebes, and it was first used in the tomb of Queen Mentuhotep of the 13th dynasty. Oh my god. So it starts in the 5th dynasty and not the 13th dynasty. It's a few thousand years.
A few thousand years.
The content of the Book of the Dead is primarily spells and incantations that the deceased would need on their journey to Duat, or the underworld, in order to get to the afterlife. The text was not written solely on papyrus, like we were saying. It was written on objects, walls, and the sarcophagus. Well, sarcophagi, because there's multiple sarcophagus. There's multiple things involved. The pyramid texts, the original pyramid texts that are in the Book of the Dead are still written on walls. The original coffin texts that are in the Book of the Dead are written on the sarcophagi. But now you have this whole other area of the Book of the Dead, and these include spells and incantations and just writings that go on the body.
Oh.
And other objects.
Oh.
Despite how the name sounds, the Book of the Dead is not just a book. There's not a complete canon Book of the Dead. There's not a complete set. Mm-hmm. But it seems that if you're rich and could afford it, you would commission a Book of the Dead, and you could choose the spells that you needed and everything that you needed to be customized to you. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. And I should preface by saying, when I'm saying spells, that doesn't necessarily mean magic or some kind of spell. It means kind of like chapters in this case.
Oh, okay.
Some of them are actual magic spells, but some of them are like 5-page descriptions on what a moon looks like.
Oh, okay.
By the 17th dynasty, some of the text was written on the linens of the mummy, as well as the walls, sarcophagi, and objects. The New Kingdom is the period with the most growth and expansion of the Book of the Dead, and this is when the famous weighing of the heart spell and description and just ritual comes into play. You know those depictions of there's a balance, and there's a heart, and there's a feather?
Yeah.
That is the weighing of the heart.
Yeah.
And this comes into play in the New Kingdom with Hatshepsut, who is the famous woman pharaoh.
Wasn't this the one that, like, they covered everything up after her reign? Or somebody
That
did?
was Nefertiti.
That was Nefertiti. Oh, okay.
But they kind of did it with her, too.
Oh.
But she's the woman that basically took on all the male personification of gods.
Yeah.
Herself, she wore the beard. She represented herself as a man, deity, but she was a woman. So she's, like, super famous. So it was with her dynasty that the weighing of the heart ritual began, and it was written in the Book of the Dead. The illustrations during this time also became larger and more detailed, and actually cut down the space of the text, which is really problematic because in Egyptian culture, the written word had the power. Yeah. So even if you had a depiction of it, it did not have the same power as the full word. Even with abbreviations, it would have to be the full word to get the full power. So these big ass drawings are impeding on their ability to have these really super powerful spells.
Oh, jeez.
So it gets weird. So during the Third Intermediate Period, there's a shift from the Book of the Dead being written in strictly hieroglyphics, and it starts being written in a hieratic script, which is basically the poor man's hieroglyphics. Oh. So it's a simplified version that is more consistent, and each symbol is actually like representative of a letter instead of being a picture of something. Oh. And that picture can mean X amount of things depending on what other pictures are around. Oh. So it's very simple for the common person to learn. So it's an increase in literacy, and it also allows the common people access to the afterlife. Oh my gosh. Because now they can read it. Yeah. And they can write it. Oh. And these scripts were cheaper and had less illustrations. And then in the 25th and 26th dynasties, so we're getting at the very end of Egyptian history. Okay. The Book of the Dead is completely standardized. Oh. So there gets to be a numbering system. So the weighing of the heart ritual that I was telling you about is spell number 125. And this is done with the Sanite dynasty, or the 26th dynasty. So they number everything and they categorize everything. So spells 1 through 16 are arranged where the dead enters the tomb. 17 through 63 explains the origins of the gods and reaffirm that the dead rose again in the afterlife. 64 through 129 is when the soul travels across the sky following the arc of the sun. Mm-hmm. And in the evening, the soul would meet Osiris. And 130 to 189, it described the dead taking their place as a god and affirming the power in the universe. And that section also includes protective spells, food provisions, and described important places that the soul would go to on their journey. It also described different challenges and different demons that they would face and how they could get through the challenge.
There you go.
The Ptolemaic Egypt, so we're talking Cleopatra's Egypt. Uh-huh. They did use the Book of the Dead, but not as heavily. And some other burial traditions and spells were added, including 2 new books.
Oh.
Including the Book of Breathing and the Book of Transversing Eternity. Because Greeks. I don't know what to tell you. The last usage of the Book of the Dead in any ritualistic or burial form was in the 1st century CE. Like, that's crazy. We're going from 550 BCE to the 1st century CE. That's over 2,500 years of burial practices that this is happening.
Oh my goodness.
The illustrations used in the book did continue to be used and drawn upon for inspiration throughout Roman times.
Okay.
So currently, there are 192 spells known to scholars. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean magic, but in some of them they mean chapters. The other spells, like actual incantations, were written to preserve a certain personality or physical trait in the afterlife. Some explain how to circumnavigate the underworld and describe challenges that awaited the soul before it reached the afterlife and how they beat that challenge. Because they had to earn their way to the afterlife. And some spells were written to be actual magic. That includes protection spells, which were written on the wrappings, and the wrappings would have amulets put into.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And those precautions were taken because the Egyptians believed in what's called a second death, and that means that the soul does not complete a challenge and dies on the journey to the underworld, through the underworld to the afterlife. And if that happens, the soul cannot be reborn. So they take all of these precautions and they do all of this shit to make sure the soul makes it.
Okay.
And so, like, you'll get different rituals, like the opening of the mouth ceremony. It's usually the spouse or whoever is taking over after the pharaoh dies. They have this ritual where they literally tap a figure, a statue, or the sarcophagus of the deceased to open his mouth so that he can speak and so that he can eat.
Oh.
And so it's like crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
That they've been doing because they think if we don't do this, homeboy's not going to be able to speak to the gods. And he's going to die.
Oh my god.
So that's the Book of the Dead for you.
That's the Book of the Dead?
I love the Book of the Dead.
That's really interesting. Because, I mean, you hear about the Book of the Dead and you're like, oh, well, it's a book. It's fine, yeah.
It's not a book.
It's just the scripts that they put on things.
And it's a collection of things. It's not, there's no canon to it.
Yeah.
So, I love Egypt.
I know you love Egypt. Amanda's our resident Egyptologist without an Egyptologist degree.
That's very true.
One day.
I'm not even going to deny that.
After you get your minors, or not minor, major. No.
Masters?
Masters. God damn.
Yeah, I was thinking my master's, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Get your PhD in Egyptology. Hit up that Cairo Museum now.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't want to write another thesis.
I know.
Screw that.
Do you have to write one for your...
Probably. It's a dissertation.
Oh god, a dissertation.
I'm not doing that shit. I'm lazy enough to do my master's. Like, let's not push me that hard.
I know. I'm, honestly, you're my anti-masters at this point.
Are your anti-masters?
I see you struggling, and I'm like, I can't do this. I like to research for this, and I like to research for myself, and sometimes my job, but doing another research, thing for school is just it's not happening.
No, can't do it.
I'm so okay with my bachelor's degree. I can't, begin to describe how okay I am with it. But okay, so it's my turn now.
I'm excited.
So I have
my mind today, Jean.
I have so little notes that you are going to have your mind blown by how much I'm going to talk about.
Oh, I'm ready.
So I wanted to talk about this week. So let's do another one of those like imagine things.
Okay.
So imagine you're on a ghost tour in England.
Uh-huh. Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, that's pretty easy for you. But imagine you're on a ghost tour in England and you're in a cemetery and you pass by the mausoleums, all of the old like weeping angel gravestones, and then you come across one of those heavy stone tablets. But this one's encased in iron.
Oh.
Like an iron cage. And you hear from either one of your partners on this ghost tour, or maybe even the leader of the ghost tour itself, your tour guide, that this was made during the 18th century to keep the vampires in their graves.
Oh my god!
Now, this is a myth. This is an absolute myth. This was absolutely... So these iron cages around these grave sites.
Yeah.
People today, the myth is it's permeated the fabric of like cemetery mythos. I'm probably not using that word right, but it's permeated this. It's so I'm trying to figure out how to say this, but it's so heavily like described as like a way to keep vampires or like zombies in their grave. Like, oh man, those Victorian people, oh, they were so worried about vampires and zombies, right? No. So I mean, they were to an extent, but they weren't to the extent of putting iron around most of their graves.
Okay.
And I mean, so I'm going to start off here with, so these iron cages are called mortsafes. And they were put around coffins and graves to keep out grave robbers.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because there is a heavy, especially during the 18th century and beforehand, and up until the 19th century when laws began to change, grave robbing was so prevalent. And it wasn't to, like, I mean, with our Egyptian predecessors, where it would be to rob them of their riches. This was to rob the body. Yeah. This was to pull the body out of the ground. And I know there are several podcasts that have already talked about this, but I really wanted to specifically mention the mortsafes, and I wanted to kind of focus on them, but I am going to get into grave robbing a little bit more too. Grave robbing, the people who did the grave robbing, rather than being called grave robbers, were called resurrectionists because during, I think I have the dates here, specifically between 1506 and 1752, it was common among, especially the United Kingdom and Scotland and Ireland and all that good shit. There was a government law in place that medical students could only use cadavers of executed convicted criminals.
Oh.
Yeah, so there was a huge demand for cadavers because to pass medical school, you had to attend so many dissections of a body, so you knew what the anatomy was, you knew what things looked like, so when you did do surgery or did do any medical practice, really, you knew what it was like. So to go around this law, medical teachers and medical students bought from grave robbers, these resurrectionists. And that's why they were called resurrectionists, because you were resurrecting the body for a different purpose.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's smart.
And this was so prevalent that, and it was really, really hushed. It was very much pushed under the rug because the government didn't want people getting pissed off about it. Because every single time when it was uncovered how many bodies were being bought by med schools and how many local poor people that were being dug up, the people had a fit about it because they didn't want their loved ones being used for this.
Right.
I read especially in Scotland they were having a huge fit about it because a lot of people did believe in resurrection and thought that the person couldn't be resurrected if the body wasn't whole. So they wanted them to be left undisturbed. And so these mortsafes were put into practice, especially for richer folk, so that people wouldn't dig up the body. They weren't full cages. Most of them were just, it was enough, it was like 4, 5, 6 feet down. So it would go far enough down so that it would discourage any grave robbers from getting to the body. Because back then they didn't really have like bolt cutters or anything like that.
So how would that work? Would they put the cage in and then the coffin, or?
Yeah. Oh. Or they put the coffin in and then the cage over it and then bury everything.
Gotcha.
And there was, like I said, this is mainly for the richer people who could afford a shit ton of iron, an iron cage to be made for their thing. Several richer people did donate to discourage grave robbers. Things that the people did was they put heavy stones on top. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of people who would actually, while the body was in state of decomposition, they would have friends of the family or family members watch over the grave for a month or two until the body was too decomposed for the med students, for the grave robbers to dig up to sell to the med students. Okay. And this was actually such a prevalent practice that some graveyards did have like towers and like little small shelters set up so that they could watch over the cemetery and make sure that nobody took the bodies.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you had, for your poorer people, you had they had different ways of doing things so that they would some put like pebbles or flowers on top of the fresh grave just so that if they visited every day and it was moved, they'd know that something happened to the body and they'd go looking for it. They would also, when they were burying the body, put like branches and stuff down to deter, because once you dug far enough down and you got into the middle of these branches, it would be hard to get through the dirt and branches.
That's smart.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure the bodies went for quite a bit. Okay. I didn't look up a specific number. That's actually something I should have looked up. But grave robbers got a lot of money. There's actually one famous case of people who weren't grave robbers. They were 2 Irishmen, and again, podcasts have talked about this before. But William Burke and William Hare, they ran an inn, and they would murder. They would murder elderly people who needed a place to stay that they would give a free place to. If they knew that they wouldn't miss them, they'd murder them in a way that you couldn't really tell that it was not natural death, and then sell the bodies. So they lived so well off with this that they flashed their money everywhere, and they got caught. They murdered a lot of people, though, but this really drew awareness to the resurrectionists and the grave robbers, and this is when the government actually stepped in and was like, maybe we should do something about this.
Oh my God.
Because, they knew that the medical implications of this were big. They needed to have students practicing, and they needed to forward medicine. Mm-hmm. So that's why they kind of were very hush about it, and why they didn't make a big stink about medical professors and people going in and buying cadavers from resurrectionists and actually creating this market for dead bodies and cadavers. They're one of the same, cadavers in general. So after William Burke and William Hare and several other cases, the Anatomy Act of 1832 was enacted in the United Kingdom. And this basically made it so that it was much easier for the medical profession to get a hold of cadavers and to be able to access them for their classes and other things to forward their profession.
Instead of illegally buying bodies on the black market.
Basically. And so the mortsafes are very much a tangible remembrance of this era. And it's so weird and so kind of funny that it's gotten so misconstrued now. Because you read things like Dracula, and you see all of this old zombie and vampire media, and you're like, okay, I can see that. Cage so the vampires don't get out of their fucking thing. I know, I read Dracula. You know what they fucking did to the bodies that turned into vampires? They did so much more than just put a fucking cage over them. And I'm pretty sure iron doesn't hurt vampires either. So I don't understand why you wouldn't just... Yeah, it's silver. So I don't understand why you would just put an iron cage over it, because I feel like the vampire would be able to get out anyway. I feel like you should have, like, lined the inside of the coffin with silver. If you're really that determined after burying a fucking vampire. Because,
buried it with lots of garlic.
So, you're gonna get me into this, but if I remember correctly, in Dracula, what they did to get rid of, one of the ladies who had turned into a vampire is after they had staked her through the heart, they cut off her head and stuffed it full of garlic. Like, stuffed her mouth full of garlic and then buried her. And I'm pretty sure that's how they didn't, like, she didn't resurrect. But I'm not even sure if that kept her down. But that's where I am on that one. So mortsafes, iron cages.
Not for vampires.
Not for vampires, for grave robbers.
You will not see that on Supernatural.
Just saying that? Well, okay.
Throwing that one out there.
Alright, well, that was all I had. So,
okay.
What's next week? Oh, love! Next week is Valentine's Day coming up, so we gotta talk about love.
We gotta talk about love. So I looked on our schedule for all the episodes that we have planned. This week was supposed to be inspired by fiction.
Oh.
And I'm really sad we didn't get to it, but that will be week after next.
Oh, inspired by fiction.
Inspired by fiction.
Well, I guess mine was kind of. But
it was, yeah.
Yeah, a little. Alright, so next week, love, and then the week after that will be inspired by fiction.
I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, alright.
Alright.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.